It's about 15 seconds is the delay. Yes, it's real important to click the go live button.
Go live.
Or else. That's funny. So it was trying to show, yeah.
20 seconds. Oh, there it goes. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I just heard you talk about a delay. Yeah, so it's. So you can hear us.
Oh, I'll give this and that.
Should we just show the audience?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the problem with that small top.
Yeah, let's just put it on this. I think it's okay.
Okay.
Yep, just heard it crash.
Do we need to turn this mic on?
So I have, it's not a bad idea. I set up the snowball mics on all the other ones.
So what is this one?
Yeah, see the snowball mic. So it's using that as a source too.
Oh, so the presenter's computer was still.
Yeah, so, but you don't have to click on it. It's just, these are the ones that are there.
Okay.
These are the sources for the scenes at different scenes, and I added it to all the scenes.
Gotcha.
So it should,
Oh, why am I seeing me? Oh, that was me straightening it up.
oh.
Yeah.
So it's talking about.
Yeah,
Nice. I can kind of flip.
So we got one out.
We talked to Balaji.
Not since last meeting, since a month ago.
I noticed you guys on the website, it said, Super Services Group and Frame.
Yes.
We're putting up on there.
That's what this meeting was. I didn't want to schedule a whole separate meeting,
Oh, okay.
so I figured we'll just double duty it next one.
Was that was like the event? I think that probably me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I don't think I changed it for the whole meetup. I think it was just for the event. I didn't mean to change it for the whole meetup.
Now they're making their products more like a suite that talk to each other, try their best to talk to each other. And,
Cool.
So we are a product within
Well, let's go ahead and get started.
It's been fast. It's been pretty fast.
Hello, everyone in Baton Rouge and online. Welcome to the Baton Rouge SQL Server User Group and the joint meeting of the Baton Rouge SQL Server User Group and Baton Rouge Analytics and Intelligence Network Brain. I'm Andy Parkerson. I will be your presenter this evening. The Baton Rouge User Groups is a nonprofit collection of user groups. The Baton Rouge User Groups, the Baton Rouge SQL Server User Groups, the Baton Rouge.net User Group, and the Baton Rouge Analytics Intelligence Network Brain. Those three, we collect them. We are always looking for speakers. If you would like to speak, sessionize.com/brug, B-R-U-G, Baton Rouge User Group, sessionize.brug. You can submit a talk there. Short talk, 15 minutes, 5 to 15 minutes, a lightning round, or a longer talk, 45 to an hour, whichever one you like. We also put on SQL Server, or SQL Saturday, which is rebranding to the Day of Data. So it is going to be this July 18th, 2026 at LSU and the Business Education Center, where it has always been. Information is at dayofdatabr.org. It's a full day. It's a free full day of training. We even buy you lunch, raffle tickets, vendors, all kind of great networking things. If you want a job, need a job, think that you might ever not want to work at your job, it's a great place to go and meet people, talk to people, get your name out there. It's nice whenever you're applying to local jobs to have people say, yes, I know you, I saw you here, I saw you there, I heard you talk here, I'm familiar. It's quick to get interviews that way. All right. If you do Sessionize instead of Brug, the call for speakers is still open. /SQL Set BR26 is the Day of Data SQL Saturday call for speakers. So go there. Short short lightning round or longer talk or panel talk, anything you can think of, we can do it. It's not just SQL Server, it's not just data, it's anything technical, it's also professional development. So there's a lot of, we have recruiters there, we have people there giving talks, how to get an interview, how to work on your resume, how to hone your skills, how to get free money from Matthew Lesko, the guy with the question marks on his shirt. All kinds of things like that. I don't know what that was about. All right, well, I'm Andy Parkerson. Let me get my presentation fired up here. I'm Andy Parkerson. They came by our office a few weeks ago and said they were giving us free headshots if you wanted them. And so I decided to be as dapper as possible.
That's pretty dapper.
Thank you very much. I didn't have my straw butter yet, but it's coming for straw butter day in May. I'm going to start by talking about Power BI custom KPIs with user-defined functions and SVGs, which stands for something vector graphic. The S doesn't stand for something, it stands for something. Okay. So we're just going to go straight to a demo. First, I will talk to you about the coolness of SVGs.
It's not on the screen.
It's not on the screen. Ah, I got that. Excellent. Thank you. So let me maximize this. So Power BI has lots of visualizations that are built in, but you can also, it allows you to create your own with SVGs. So the code can actually create the SVG for you and it lets you do really neat stuff, like change all your colors at once, or resize, or apply themes, things like that. Somebody else made this, but let me show you what I made. So first, let's talk about, this is the end, when we get to the beginning, user-defined functions. So user-defined function is a function that you write in DAX. You can create it in the Timdal or in the DAX query window. And you define the function, you give it inputs and everything, and then it treats it just like it's built in DAX. So the first function I have here is one scale to unit. So if I have 1,847,253,217, instead of showing that number, it says 1.81 billion. So it just scales down to that. And it returns a table that has the scale version, the word billion, and the short B right there. Then I have build KPI SVG. And it looks rather complicated and long. And you might say, gee, I'm not that smart to write something that complicated and long. I don't have the talent for that. I might have said that, if I were prone to saying true things like that, I would have said that too. What I did was I opened up Copilot and I said, hey, Copilot, I want to write a user-defined function that creates a SVG, and here's all the things I want it to do. And it spit something like this out at me. And I was able to refine it, say, no, I want it to do this, or actually go in the code and change it here and there until I actually got what I want. But this takes your big value, the previous, the year over year, and the label, and then the width and height, the big font, the little font, and the font family. and it produces this. So this is an SVG, it's an image, but when I go to create the image, in fact, I'll delete this. Oh no. So I go and I insert an image. And I come over here. Here's the image, and I want the format of it. Let's give up build. So I go to style and the image part. My image source comes from the data. I add data. I add my KPI. So that's how I create the thing. If I look at my KPI, I have, I will format it a little bit better for you. There's my first number. That's what it is today. This is what it was last year. This is the percentage change. And this is what it actually is, how it's described. And then I have my width and height, my big font, my little font, and my font family. So that's how I built it. And this is an image. So whenever anything changes, for example, if I did not, and you ideally wouldn't feed it actual numbers, you would feed it a measure. So I would have a man-hour measure, and I would feed it man-hours right here. So it would be something like man-hours. And then here I would feed it man-hours last year. And here I would feed it man-hours year over year. So I define those three measures. I feed it those three measures. And then whenever I change my filters, if I change the year, if I change the time frame, if I slice for different sections of my company, it would update this SVG automatically. I didn't do that, so you just have to imagine that I did and go, ooh. There you go, just like that. Perfect. Now, I was looking at this and talking to somebody I worked with who is a graphical designer, and he said I should think about accessibility. I have text here that's an image. If somebody's using a screen reader, they're going to say, and they hover over it, it's not going to show them any information at all. So the nice thing is, I can come down to my Kindle, I can create another alt text. And what this does is, one thing you'll notice, this looks in the SVG itself. Think of SVG sort of full of markdown, full of open and close tags like an HTML page. So it's open SVG, close SVG, open description, close description, open title, close title. This looks for description. If there's one great, it uses it. It looks for title. If there's one great, that's the fallback. And if there's nothing, it's just nothing. So this rips the description off of the SVG, and then it rips the title off of that in case you can't find it. Otherwise, it's just blank. And it returns that string all in one. So if I had I go over here, if I were using a screen reader and I hovered over this, it would say 12.34 million man hours, an increase of 14% from last year, 8.12 M. So it would read it right there. And the way you set that up is on properties, the image properties, you go to alt text, you go to formula, which field should we base this on? You base it on KPI alt text. And that function, KPI alt text, is just my user-defined function, and I pass it my measure. So I pass it my SVG measure. So it takes the SVG and then It rips the description off. If it's there, uses that. If not, if the title off, it's there. If not, releases nothing. So now I can take that and if someone's using a screen reader, they can see all the metrics here, where otherwise they wouldn't be able to. So that is user-defined functions and SVGs in a nutshell. Imagine, so the use case was I had a table I had a report that was showing, I think, 12 different KPIs. And each one, man hours, quantity earned, employee number, things like that. So for each of these 12 things, I was displaying a card for this year's, a card for last year's, a card for percentage year over year, a card for description. Each one sort of layered on top of each other. So it's very busy, takes a long time to render, takes a long time to build all of those units. If you want to move everything to the right, you have to move everything to the right. Grouping is a pain. It's 5 things to maintain. This is 1 thing to maintain. And it's just one formula. So all I have to do is, if I want to look at man hours next, instead of passing it the man hours measure, I pass it the employees measure. And then it generates that. It's all done real quick. Now, one thing you might notice, if you're the kind that notices things, is I pass it man hours last year, and man hours year over year. So I have to create 3 measures for this one thing. And I have to give it the name of the measure. So I have to create 4 things every time I want to use this. This is where calculation groups come into play. I can create a calculation group that when I apply it to man hours, it calculates year over year. When I apply it to any measure, it'll calculate year over year, it'll calculate percentage difference year over year, and it will tell me the name of that measure. So I could improve this. If I wanted to, I could make this 2, and I would pass it just man hours, and it would know everything it needs to know. I have to redefine my definition, my user-defined function, and tell it, you're going to get a measure that's expression, apply to get the current, apply the current calculation item, to get last year's, apply last year's calculation item, by year over year, by that calculation item, get the name, apply the name calculation item. But all that logic is tied up in a calculation group once. And I can have 50 measures that I do this to, only create that logic once. So I have my SVG logic that I create once, my alt text logic that I create once, my calculation group, time intelligence logic that I create once. And then I can apply it to as many things as I want to. And I can define them all in Tyndall, so that when I want to bring this to my next measure, to my next report, I just copy this information, copy paste, and it's there. So I don't have to worry about that. And that is user-defined functions and SVG. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
In comparison with using one of the visuals, right? So let's say you want to visualize one of the analysis. In comparison with, comparing SVGs with one of the visuals that is in the Power BI, the thing of that the code has to be compiled every time. So is it performance-wise? Is it like the difference is huge between performance of I don't know, loading that visual that coming from the table in comparison with the measure?
So it was, for my use case, I had 12 different KPIs, each one with 5 different parts. So that's 60 different visuals that I had to on one report page. So Yeah, loading 12 things is much faster than loading 60 things. What the nice thing too is, and what was the really great thing about this, you can edit this however you want to. You're creating this, you're defining the SVG, so you can make it look however you want to. For me, it was really nice if I hadn't just broken this. Oh, thank you.
I've done that before.
It was really nice to say, hey, non-technical people, business folks, here's the information you want. How many managers did you have last year, or during the period that you're looking at? How did it compare to last year? Percentage up and down, and what was it last year? I had mocked up a couple of things. I went into business and they said, what does this mean? What does that mean? How does that go? Where does that go? Why don't we create a button that has a help desk, has a help pop up, and we can explain what it was for each one of those things. And as soon as you need a help button, it means that your visuals aren't clear enough. It was like, how can we get rid of that? How can we make it obvious so that everybody knows what's going on? Anyone who can read knows this. And I am proud to say that I work at a company with close to 100% literacy. So,
In the one more question.
yeah.
Can this SVG combine with one of the visuals? For example, can you use the SVG that you created with the DAX application within the usual, for example, as an image?
Probably, maybe. I don't know. I haven't tried it. I would say it depends, because that's what you're supposed to say. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to see which visual. It would probably depend on a visual by visual basis, depending on how everything's wired on the back end, whether it allows this to work or not. All right. Any other questions? Great. Now, for what you all came here to see. Own your own workflow. Use notebooks locally and deploy them to Fabric. I'm going to talk on something slightly different. I'm just going to talk about notebooks in general, Fabric notebooks in general. So, I'll hit a little bit on deploying them locally, building it that, and then deploying them to Fabric. But for the most part, we're just going to talk about Fabric. We're just going to talk about Fabric notebooks. So Microsoft Fabric is a collection of different technologies. It sort of contains Power BI, it contains Jupyter Notebooks, it contains pipelines, which you can think of as, if you've done anything with Azure Data Factory, those same pipelines. If you've done anything with Airflow pipelines, it's the same kind of idea. First do this, then do that, then take the output and do this to it. It contains OneLake storage, which is a giant data lake, all encompassing of everything. It also contains Delta lakes. Delta table is a Parquet table that stores history. So think of like a Parquet table is like a CSV on steroids, with all the greatest things that you wish CSVs had, like data typing and column names. So all that stuff is baked in there. It's columnar storage, so it compresses it down real tiny. The nice thing about Delta tables is they take that Parquet framework and they add on time travel to it. So you have a history of everything that's changed. We also have SQL warehouses and event houses. SQL warehouses are akin to the Synapse warehouses of past, and event houses are for real-time data, streaming real-time data. So if you have a sensor on a bunch of machines, and you want to make sure that you know how hot they're running, what the RPMs are, and all of that, so that you can get that information quickly. If you want to tie this to your SQL Server cluster on-prem and have it send all that information up there, so as you can see what's my usage load, everything there. You can query against it. That's Microsoft Fabric. The great thing is they're adding more stuff to Microsoft Fabric every day. The terrible stuff is they're adding new stuff to Microsoft Fabric every day. So it's a constant learning battle. But the great thing is nobody knows everything. So it's just how big is your ignorance. That was I wanted that to be more inspirational than it was. If you know something, you know more than somebody who doesn't. How about that? Okay, I'm going to talk today about Jupyter Notebooks. Jupyter Notebooks. Does anybody know where the word Jupyter comes from? Except for Caleb, because he heard me tell it earlier. Okay, there are three Jupyter Notebooks arose because people were running in 3 different languages and wanted one single thing to use all of them. The language Julia, the language Python, and the language R. So Ju-Pi-Er is Jupyter. That's why it's spelled all weird. Now here's a bonus question. If anybody gets this question, Caleb will give them $1. You get a free book. You get a bonus thing. Does anybody know why R is called R? Because R is an open source implementation of S. True story. Okay, Jupyter Notebooks have different blocks. They can be a block of code or a block of markdown comments, and they can have visuals. They can have output. Fabric notebooks are one of 2 varieties here, either Python notebooks or PySpark notebooks. PySpark is Spark and Python. Not a lot of original naming in these things. You just take a bunch of things and you just take a couple letters from each one and you mash them together. Spark gives you distributed programming. It gives you big data workloads. It's fast, it's developer friendly, and it lets you do a lot of things in parallel. So you can spin up a cluster, a Spark cluster, 10 different nodes, and run 10 notebooks concurrently. So if you have small data, you're just doing a little one-off thing. You've got a couple thousand rows, 1 million rows or so. Python is just fine. Use a Python notebook, no problem. If you have a couple billion rows, 10 petabytes of data, then you want that Spark cluster. Why should you go local first? Well, a lot of the reasons why local first was an awesome thing, Microsoft listened and changed. So one of the reasons why I got into this was the editor for Fabric Notebooks. So let me see if I can pop one up real quick so you can get a little flavor for it real quick. So this is Fabric. This is my company Fabric.
It's not up on the screen.
This is indeed it is not. Thank you. Okay. So this is my workspace that I built completely for this talk. It has no proprietary data on it at all. This is, let me open up, I'll just create a new Fabric notebook. Notebook 1. So you edit everything online by default. Everything's through the browser. You have data sources right here. If I wanted to create a data lake, if I wanted to add a data lake, let's see. Here's a open source data lake that I have. I would add it right here. And I've got tables that I've created and files that I've created. This is my lake house. And I come over here and I can add comments. So let's make this a markdown window. And there we have it. Let me edit this. And I'll say sample notebook. And I'll give some instructions. Here's what to do when things go wrong. Then I'll add some code down here. I'll say we'll import, or just say A equals 2, B equals 3, C equals 2 plus 3, A plus B. Now print C. Now I'll run everything, and it's going to spin up a cluster or attach me to an already spun up cluster. And then it's going to execute the code that I have right here. And before you know, the answer is 5. So the next time you're about to get out the calculator, watch your phone. Say, hold on a second. Let me spin up a notebook. My calculation's right here. And press my boss. Okay. So clearly that's not what you would do, but let's look at some other examples of things you could do. So one of the, I heard a talk, a podcast the other day. There's a Fabric podcast. If you want your significant other to think that you're a total nerd, listen to a Microsoft Fabric podcast in the car together. It's something else. But the guy who was giving the talk, I forget who it was, but he was looking at notebooks and trying to see how, sort of what the best bang for the buck. When do I use what? Because Fabric has lots of different ways of doing things. There are notebooks, there are pipelines. You can do a whole lot of stuff with pipelines. There are also data flow Gen 2s. Data flows look a lot like Power Query, because they are Power Queries. In fact, I'll pop one open so you can see what it looks like. A data flow is, imagine Power Query from Power BI, except it can save to a location. So it can save to a table. It can save to a flat file. It can save to the cloud, wherever you want it to. So if you notice, this looks a lot like your Power Query on Power BI, as it is. So it's right here. This is low code, no code. So it's a low barrier to entry. If you use Power BI, you're familiar with this, so you don't have to learn anything new. You don't have to learn Python, you don't have to learn Spark. You don't have to learn the pipelines. Let's look at pipelines real quick. Go back here, I'll create one. Oh. New pipeline. Just going to open that up for me real quick. I'll start with a blank canvas. I'll look at copying data. So I can copy data from one thing to another. I can go over here and I can say, okay, I want to, after I do that, then I'm going to create a data flow, and then I'll create a notebook. And whenever my copy data is done, I'll run the data flow. And whenever the data flow is done, if it fails, then I'll run this notebook. And if it succeeds, then I'll run this other notebook. All right, auto line everything. So there's all this stuff you can do. This is also low code, no code, but it's a little more code than data flows. Correct. It's a little more powerful. And then lastly, you have notebooks. So the podcast said that of those three, the easiest to use was the data flows, but they were the slowest. They used the most CUs, most computation units. That's not the right word.
Just call it C.
Yeah, they use the most CUs. They use the most hardware memory, and they were the slowest, but they were the easiest to use. In the middle were pipelines, and then the absolute fastest, least power consumption was the notebooks. So if you could, use notebooks for everything, but you can't do that for everything. So you gotta learn it all. So one of the nice things we have is on the notebooks, you connect to a lakehouse and you connect to the files in the lakehouse. You say, okay, these are my files. So I'm loading these Parquet files right here. Spark read format data frame. I'm a little bit over, so let me that. So I look at my 1 years of sales. I'm going to add a few columns. I'm going to tell you how to calculate those columns. And then I want you to write it to this table. And the table name is going to be fact sale. So take my Parquet file, add a few columns to it. You could delete columns. You could join it with other tables, and then you write it to where you want. That's your facts. Dimensions, very similar. Here's my table. Here's what I want it to look like. Here's the formula. Here's the function that I've written to do that. Do it. And then it writes it to the table and so on. One of the nice things is, if you're over here, you can view a table of contents. And if you have created good markdown blocks, code blocks, or markdown blocks, so what each thing is, you can sort of get an idea of where everything is. So I can go to my fact sale, or to my dimension, or back to the configuration. All right, let's look at some things that you can do with notebooks other than that. So here is a Jupyter Notebooks Basics. So here we have a big code block at the beginning, a big markdown block at the beginning, telling you what's going on. The idea that the way I like to think about it is this gives you a chance to write all the documentation in line with the code so that you don't have to refer to anything else. You don't have to go look up some doc and say, when was the last time that was written? When was that updated? Where do I find this? Oh, it's here, but nobody's updated it in 6 years, or we changed the code 4 times last month. This puts it right in front of your face. So if you change the code, if you change the logic, your old documentation is staring you in the face saying, change me too. Make sure that I'm updated too. So, got that? Got this. I can run them all. I can run everything all at once. And it will, piece by piece, it will run it. You see it's running this print message. And say, oh, there's an error. I didn't define message. Like, that's my fault. See, and it even says, try running this first. You didn't do that. So now I can run this one by itself. And that's the other nice thing about it. You can run them asynchronously. So you don't have to start at the beginning and run all the way down. You have a big, long notebook that has 30 different things that you care about, and you only run the code that you care about. Now, if you build a notebook like that, you want to make sure that you have built into where if you accidentally run everything, it's not going to do a lot of stuff that you don't want it to do. But that's on you at that point. So now I've defined even though message is after, in the notebook, it comes after that, because I could run these independently, I ran this one, the 3 right here, tells me that I ran a third, and then 4 right here, tells me I ran a fourth, so I ran this one after. Now it knows what message is, and so it prints it right there. You can also run scripts that aren't in the notebook. This isn't going to work because I don't have that script. So it's going to tell you, I don't know where that script is. Try to figure it out. Right, let's see. The nice thing is too, you can have your notebooks do your visualizations. They can be your presentation layer as well. So you can have part of your process to be to run the notebook and take all this output and email it to 5 stakeholders. So you would have your introduction, here's the sales report for last week, here's whatever it was, and then you come down here, use Matplotlib, and we generate some information. This just generates a bunch of random information, but then it gives you a visual, prints it out right here. Now the nice thing is, when you schedule these, so you schedule these notebooks to run, Microsoft uses something called Livy to do all the scheduling for that and save all the states. So every day I have, in my ETL process, I copy over a few hundred tables and use notebooks to capture the changes. So I copy over everything that's changed. I say, okay, take this information and either update or insert into the existing tables. Each table gets its own notebook. There's really only one notebook, just a different instance of that notebook. If something fails, I can go back, even if it doesn't fail, I can go back and look at what happened yesterday, and it will show me the output from every single notebook and every single run that I had. So it's very helpful to find out why did this fail. You can see the actual notebook, the actual error message that came up. It saves all of that information. I don't know how long it saves it, but at least the next day, that's when I check it. All right. Let's look at one last thing. Let's look at Spark notebooks. So let's see if this runs. I pulled this off of Spark. My compute session was disconnected, so I run this earlier on a certain compute session, a certain Spark cluster. It times out after a certain amount of time. You can tell how much to. You're paying in CUs by the second. So the more you use, the less capacity you have for anything else. CUs are capacity units, what it's called. So you want to balance it between, you don't want to wait a long time to spin them up, but you don't want them to hang out live so long that it just eats up all your CUs. So this was hanging out live so long, it just died. So I'll try to run it again. It will spin up another, that was. I'll connect a new session.
Go to your other notebooks and shut down those sessions. Okay. Stop. Still might take a little while for it to come out.
While we're talking about that, it's starting up. There's a standard session and a high concurrency session. The high concurrency session lets you use your cluster for lots and lots of different notebooks. So I can have, generally whenever I start my ETL process in the morning at 2 a.m., let's say, I spin up concurrency cluster. And that persists until I'm done. So I'll go through several different pipelines, I'll go through several different notebooks, so maybe a dozen notebooks, and then 200 instances of each notebook, all that. It's always going to use that same cluster, that same high concurrency cluster until I'm done. So I just say, hey, the way that you do it is you create a session tag. You basically name the cluster. I'm using cluster ETL 2025 or 225 because that's February 25th. So my cluster is ETL 225. That's the name of the cluster, and I pass that to all along the pipeline. And so every time I go to spin up a notebook, I say, hey, look for a cluster with this name. If you see a cluster with this name, use it. If you don't, spin up your own notebook because something's happened. But that has cut down CU tremendously doing that, as opposed to spinning up a new cluster every time I go by. Because it's smart enough to, whenever I have when I'm looping through tables, when I say notebook over looping through tables, it can pick that up. But whenever I go from one pipeline to the next pipeline, it will spin a whole new thing. So I was going through, a dozen different clusters spinning up every time. Each one takes time to spin up, and everything waits until that's done. So it was taking it from a short time to a long time. And by using high availability, high concurrency clusters and telling it how to do it all correctly, I was able to narrow it all down to much shorter and less resource intensive. It's starting my session, it's going to take some time. And if it doesn't, then such is the way. I have a rate limit. Okay. Have any questions so far? Yes.
I have a couple. One kind of harkens back just at the very beginning. We talked about not SQL warehouse, but like an event warehouse style.
Yes.
Fabric. Does it now have support for receiving streaming events like a la what you're running with Kafka? Can you or does it? You see what I'm saying? Like a third-party application deployed wherever, like you said, like a sensor pushing data via whatever protocol. Like in the Kafka world, you can literally, like, if you want to, you can do a REST API called Kafka and post a message to it, right? And you have something analogous now in Microsoft Fabric.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so you don't need a separate receiver for streaming data. Okay.
Right. Yeah, so you set up an event, it's called an event stream.
Okay.
And that event stream, you define sort of, here's what my schema is going to look like, here's what the data is going to be. It's going to be JSON, it's going to be CSV, it's going to be some other API I've written up. Here's how I'm going to look at it. Here's what it's going to look like. Here's where you're going to stick it. It does allow for schema drift. So if your schema is coming in like this today, and then tomorrow there's an extra column, it's not going to blow up. It can handle that. Now, I say this, I have played with it. I haven't used it because I don't have any live data. We don't stream any data. We don't have any live data that I work with. So I haven't had professional experience with it, but I've done some tutorials. I played around with it. That's my understanding.
I guess my other question is visibility. How's visibility into your clusters? So I come from working more with Databricks, right? Where you can, for example, just spin up a cluster of size, whatever you want, pretty much, from very small to very, very big, right? And it at least offers some basic metrics about like the stress that is currently on your cluster at time A from everything you're running on it. I am not very familiar with Microsoft Fabric and how Microsoft Fabric handles capacity. Is there easy visibility into how much capacity you're eating over time when you're doing 100 jobs at 3 o'clock in the morning and one fails and you don't know why?
Yeah, there is a built-in app. There's an app in Fabric It's basically a collection of Microsoft Power BI reports. That's what they call an app. There's an app that ties into your data on your capacity, and will tell you here's how many CUs I'm spending on pipelines, how many CUs I'm spending on report refreshers, here's how many CUs I'm spending on notebooks and things like that. And I can slice and dice however I want to with that. I can get it by the day, by the hour, things like that. I can also, I haven't done much of this, but I've done a little bit. You can go into the actual logging on the clusters themselves and see, show me all the logs from when it spun up. What was the usage percentage? When did it start? When did it stop? How many nodes were there? And things like that. That's the second thing. The third thing is you can you can define the size of your cluster. So Microsoft has a thing called environments. In their Spark environments, you say small, medium, large, or whatever. And I want 64 gigs of data. I want 84 clusters. I want, however big my data size is, from big to small. The big ones use more CUs than the small ones, of course. And the longer they run, the more they cost. But it's one of those things that if you can get something done faster on a bigger cluster, it kind of all works out in the end. How soon do you need it? I do not know feature parity. If I wanted to guess, then I would say if you were asking that kind of questions, then then Databricks is a good choice for you.
Okay.
Yeah. If you need that much visibility that deep on a regular basis, then yeah, Databricks is going to be that for you. It's not to say you can't get it here, because you probably can in some way, but I think you're going to be able to fine tune a little bit more in Databricks. Now the nice thing is, and I'll say this, Azure sells Databricks.
Yeah.
So you use Azure Databricks and get the exact same experience billed through your Azure account and not through your separate Databricks account. So that is a nice thing. Yeah, I think that it's one of those things that it's kind of a ramp. How technical do you need to be? How much control do you have to have? It's kind of the difference between, and this will date me, difference between a Mac and a PC 10 to 15 years ago. If you want something that just works, you don't want to fine tune everything, you don't really care. You shoot a Mac, you turn it on, you plug it in, it's like, wow, you get the cool commercial kit. But if you want to, I want to know how much memory this process is running, and I want to make sure that I want to tweak my mem.sys file at the beginning and do all that stuff, then the PC is the way for you. And that's my understanding of how it would go. Yeah.
I think in use cases like different, but this is very good that it's like you have all the services in one place, and you connect everything like your pipelines, anything that can dashboards here in one place. But my question here is like, does it have a feature that different services can automatically talk to each other? For example, if a data is being read from a table and you update the table, for example, you have a note that you want to present, and you don't want to go through the note and change the values. Instead of that, you say read this variable value from my table. Do you think like this kind of service connection is in the natural fabric? For example, does it read or updates its values based on your table?
So you can set on pipelines, you can set different triggers. So you can have a schedule trigger. You can also have a data lake trigger. So whenever a new file shows up in your data lake, and it can be any file at all, or a file with this kind of name on it, or you can trigger it via API. So I could write a Power Automate flow that says every time I get an email on this account with this name, it has this attachment, that's a Excel file, then take that, dump it to my data lake and run this notebook. So I can schedule it that way. I could also do a similar thing, and I believe you cannot. This next thing I'm going to, my best understanding is, you could set up a trigger on a table. It says whenever this table is updated, fire off this notebook. I know that Microsoft lets you mirror notebook. It has mirror databases that will tie in with CDC. So if your SQL Server has change data capture enabled, you can mirror that in Fabric, and then whenever anything changes here, instantaneously it changes. No, there's not kind of it. Instantaneously it changes in the cloud, and you could. I would imagine that you could set that up. That there would be a way to say, okay, whenever this happens, do something. I know that event houses have a thing called an activator that says, listen to the stream that's coming in, look for this piece of information or this condition or this variable. And whenever that happens, do that. So you write your Kusto query language, your KQL query, and it's just constantly running it against your stream. And every time a piece comes up, once that query returns true, well, then it fires off the activator and says, do this thing, sound the alarms or ring the bells, it's Christmas.
Task schedule, controls that you can have, the tasks you can run, is very broad.
So here in the notebook itself, you can schedule things. So there's different ways you can schedule. You could create a pipeline and then add the notebook as the only item in there, and then schedule the pipeline. Or you can schedule it straight with the notebook. So if you want the notebook to run by itself, regardless of what's going on with the pipeline, you do it that way too. If everything is contained in one notebook, this makes sense. If you have a sort of a process with multiple different notebooks, then you would want a pipeline to orchestrate all those. One thing that notebooks don't do that other notebooks, like actual paper notebooks, do is have pages. There are no pages in a Jupyter notebook. It's just one big long continual doom scroll. So if you wanted to say, hey, for readability, you want this 1 page, 2 page, 3 page, 4 page, that's not as good. But Jupyter Notebooks are open source, so it could be, well, good. All right, anything else? Yes.
It's a nice automatic integration with GitHub and or a REST API post. Like if I write a notebook on my laptop, is it easy for me to go put it into Fabric? Like without going to Fabric UI?
Yes.
Okay, so they thought, okay, that's all.
Easy is a loaded word.
There's an API or
Yeah.
Git integration.
It's straightforward. There's a very good Visual Studio Code plugin extension
Okay.
that if I can open it up here real quick, that ties into your Fabric space over here. So it ties into your workspace, and you can load up your anything you want to. Yeah. And if I had better internet, this is where it would show up. Yeah, you can do it that way. There are APIs you can tie into. You can tie into DevOps. You can tie into what's GitHub's implementation, whatever their thing is.
Everybody has
Yeah.
their own thing. It's all.
Yeah, you can tie in that way too. You can also, a very easy way to do it is you take care of all your version control locally. You have your GitHub repository on your local machine. You do that. And then whenever you want to load it, you go to your workspace and you import a notebook from this computer. And it pops it right up. This goes through the UI, so it's on the palette, or your node UI thing, but it's it doesn't require programming or orchestration. But yeah, if you want to, there's lots of different CI/CD stuff you can do with this. There's also CI/CD Git integration built into the workspace itself. So you can do version control on your Power BI reports, on your pipelines, on your notebooks, on everything that you do. You can do version control that way. You build a feature branch, you make your changes, you merge it, you do all that. You deploy from your dev environment, dev workspace, your testing workspace. You know, it signs off and you deploy from testing to production, and the way that goes. And there's a million different best practices for that. Great. Well, thank you all very much. Hopefully you have, you'll all go out and buy very expensive fabric capacities and try this out. Microsoft gives you a free 60-day trial of Fabric. So you go to app.fabric.microsoft.com. You get a free 60-day trial. At the end of that, the last time I checked, they'll give you another 60 days. And at the end of that, they might give you another 60 days. There are X number of 60-day trials available to you and your organization. One person can use all of them one after another, or lots of people can use them all at once. It's not a way to steal from Microsoft. It's a way to try things out. Because you all know, we have a 60-day trial. I signed up for it today, and then 59 days, it's like, oh yeah, I was supposed to go try that out. You only have a day left. That's their idea. They'll kick it back for you. But yeah, you can try this out all free. And they start you, the free trial gives you an F64, which is a very high capacity. It's comparable to a P1 license in Power BI Premium. If you guys knew anything about that, you'd be really impressed. It's a $5,000 a month spend. So they give you $10,000 a month. They give you $10,000 of free fabric. At least once. And probably multiple times. And their hope is that you'll like it so much, they'll make that back in multiples. Great. Well, thank you all very much.
Give away the books and stuff.
Yes. So we have, Thomas has picked out a selection of books. Site Reliability Engineering. If this sounds interesting to you and you want it, jump up and say, I want it. Football Analytics. Oh, okay. It's yours. Excellent, of course. Football Analytics with Python and R. If you're looking for a Python book to learn Python that's not Minecraft based, this is a good, fun book if you like football. Or Prompt Engineering for Generative AI. There we go. We got a taker in the back. We also have, oh, Thomas, would you grab those two boxes right there? A parcel scale. So you put your letter here and say, oh, it's this many pounds. That's how much football you're going to put on it. Or you want to hang your kid, or you want to hit somebody with it, or you want to hack it and break into the CIA. I don't know how that would work, but we've got two of those. We've got whatever this is. Oh, a Matillion power bank. It has a cord built into it. It has multiple cords, a USB-C and a USB-A cord. And it was like a lightning cord, all built in. There we go. We also compliments of MMR. We have a handy dandy desk organizer with a built-in calculator and a whiteboard thing. There we go, perfect. And lastly, a 40-ounce tumbler. It's made by Hydro Jug. And let's see what corporate branding it has on it. T-Mobile. Show your T-Mobile pride. Malad wants it, so there you go.
Can I get a free ride in the MMR private jet?
You gotta ask Lane Gifford. If he says yes, then you're good to go. All right, well, thank you, everybody. Our next meeting is in March.
The second Wednesday in March, I think.
Second Wednesday.
And Brian Davis, who did a presentation at SQL Saturday, is going to be here. He's an ex-employee of Emeritus, and I think he helped runs the extended curriculum at LSU. You can go and do week-long classes. He's one of the directors there. And he also has, I think, an AI company. So I think it's the second Wednesday. Just go to Meetup and it'll show the list. This one, we put this one on a different Wednesday because the library already had that meeting, the second Wednesday scheduled. So keep checking our Meetup because they might flip-flop on what Wednesday we have them.